Thank you for your patience. We sat up a bit slowly, and I'm Rebecca, and you didn't come to hear me, you came to hear Brian, and I'm introducing him, but first we have to say a few basics. This program is brought to you, excuse me. True brilliance. Brought to you by Any Road Productions. And in case you never heard of us, we are really the same people who've been doing things in the same room for about 25 years under different names and as the building mutated. And we're especially delighted to be bringing in tonight's speaker because besides being an activist, he's a good friend of ours. And he isn't just one of your activists who go around about being activists. He also knows how to milk goats, grow organic vegetables, and raise fabulous children. We could have not done this without help from co-sponsors. The Copy Exchange, our neighbor Franklin, who helps us enormously, lives only down the block and can do things that we can't with his computer. Patty McKee and John Krieg, good friends in Des Moines who support this. Veterans for Peace, Chapter 161, Iowa City, who we're delighted to have as a co-sponsor. And American Friends Service Committee of Iowa. And Peace Iowa, some people from that are in the room. And Workers for Peace, which used to be called Women for Peace, but they wanted to keep the initials and let men in, and they're in Cedar Rapids. If you have a wonderful time and you have friends who you wish you could have told them you should have been there, you can send them to Prairie Woods, 120 East Boyson Road, Cedar Rapids, tomorrow at 7.
Hiawatha.
Pardon me?
Hiawatha.
Hiawatha. It's not really Cedar Rapids. It's, it is Cedar Rapids' Coralville equivalent. And also, thank you to Mauro Heck, who is videotaping tonight's program. We are currently in the public library. They're our hosts, just as Prairie Woods tomorrow is our host. They're not sponsors, and I think most of you know your way around the library. But if you need to use the bathroom, you go out the way you came in, you go to the main hall and take a right, and you'll find bathrooms and water fountains. And after the program, there'll be plenty of time for questions and answers, and then there'll be visiting time, and there'll be cookies, a rather international selection of cookies from Croatia, Germany, Egypt, and elsewhere. So please sample them, and while you're munching, you'll have an opportunity to look at a map of the world or a map of Bahrain, and there are just enough interesting people here that there's plenty to talk about. Everyone isn't brave enough to do what Brian does and go to war zones, or we don't have the spinal strength or the ability to leave our families, and so we stay home and make a commitment that if he goes, when he comes to our town, we're going to get him a gig. And some of you make a commitment to show up. And so there's something that everybody needs to do and can do in these times to connect you to being an activist. And if nothing else, just spread the word. Tonight's talk will be available on YouTube. Without further delay, I present to you our dear friend and activist, Brian Terrel.
Yeah, thanks, Hall. And there's many good friends here. I'm really happy to be here. Most of the time I live in southern Iowa, little town of Malloy. There's newsletters from our community there. And I'll try to, this is my first public appearance since I visited Bahrain. I was invited to be here to talk about the war in Afghanistan and about the drones that are flying there and in other places that I've been resisting. And in the meantime, just a couple weeks ago, got an emergency invitation from with the group I work with, Voices for Creative Nonviolence. We heard from people in Bahrain, the Bahrain Human Rights Committee for Center for Human Rights, asking activists to come and be there for the February 14th, the first anniversary of their experience of the Arab Spring uprising against a very tyrannical monarchy that's there, and that was put down very brutally. We haven't heard about it as much here because Bahrain is a close ally of Saudi Arabia and is also the home of the Fifth Fleet, which is the U.S. military's presence in the Persian Gulf. So I'll talk more about that later, but a week ago tonight I was in a police station in Manama, the capital city, waiting to be deported to come home. And our group of 11 Americans were picked up and kicked out. But the reason why we were invited to begin with was that the Bahrain government had made it known that the usual human rights organizations, Human Rights Watch, Physicians for Human Rights, Amnesty International, were all going to be barred for the whole month of February. None of them would be getting any visas to come into the country. And that the media was going to be very much excluded as well. And so they look for people to, they wanted tourists to come and to see what's going on. And I'll get back to it, but this photo is, this was from just last Tuesday, and I was in this car sitting next to the person who took this picture. And this was on the road to the Pearl Roundabout where the demonstrations were last year, that people were attempting to walk there and were attacked by the Bahraini police with tear gas. And in Bahrain, they don't use tear gas as a crowd control tool, but they use it as a method of collective punishment. And when you're tear gassed and you run away, they chase you down and try to corner you. There are many people are even injured. They use the tear gas grenades as weapons. And if you see this picture, I was just telling somebody who asked if I was frightened, and I said yes, but I always saw courage from the people there that kind of blew me away. This is a young man with nothing but a scarf around his face and no gloves. And he's picking up the tear gas canisters and tossing them away with his bare hands. Tremendous courage there. But I was invited to come and talk about Afghanistan, and we'll start with this. Now, I work with a group out of Chicago, Voices for Creative Nonviolence, that was started during the time of the sanctions in Iraq, and we made many delegations travel to Iraq during the years when that was illegal, bringing medicines in against the sanctions. And these last few years, we've been bringing small groups of people into Afghanistan. I attended a year ago in December. I spent 3 weeks there, and with a group of 7 Americans, and we met up with 7 people from the Afghan Youth Peace Volunteers. And this picture was taken last December on our trip, and Kabul is the most amazing, of all the places I've ever been, it was the hardest place just to be. The air is just really, really bad. People are burning garbage. There's very little in the way of sewage treatment or anything. There are airborne diseases there that doctors have only seen in waterborne. And all of this growth up the mountain is all since the 2000. The population of Kabul was only about, was less than 1 million in 2001. And now it's more than 5 million, and it's growing fast. And these are refugees coming in from all over, from all over the country. And you know, this is with the sewage, where you know the infrastructure being destroyed by years and years of war. And as we traveled around, we saw ruins that we didn't know whether we had to ask whether they were buildings that had been destroyed by the bombs from the war with the Soviets, from their own civil war, from our attacks, or whether they were building projects that were never finished. And almost nothing that gets started gets done. And what you hear about of economic development that the United States has been doing in Afghanistan, it really is another way of warfare against the people there. And actually, one of the people that we were able to meet was the governor of Kabul, who has since resigned because he said that he wanted to come. He was an Afghan who had a degree in engineering from Virginia Tech, who returned to his country wanting to help rebuild it, and he found out he was really just helping funnel U.S. funds into the hands of criminals. And so our group of Americans met with, were joined by the Afghan Youth Peace Volunteers. And these are mostly teenagers from Bamiyan. If you look at their features, most of the people of Afghanistan of the several ethnic groups are of Turkic or Persian origin. And these are, these kids are Hazara, who are, the tradition is that they're descendants of Genghis Khan and the Mongols. And they're the only Shia, really the only Shia minority in Afghanistan. It's a very, they're the community of people that really have suffered the most there. And I think it's from there that we're seeing more of the hope, too. So we formed our talk around our tour there in November of 2010, just as we were planning our trip. A 29 aid organizations. Oxfam is the best known. Open Society Foundations, a bunch of Afghan indigenous NGOs. For the meeting of the NATO heads of government in Lisbon, last meeting of NATO, they had made a report, Nowhere to Turn. These are the NGOs working on the ground in Afghanistan, pretty much saying that that in every way the situation there is just spiraling worse and worse. And we made appointments to meet with our Afghan friends, with representatives of these groups. And we also got to meet some of the local politicians. This man is, his name is Bashir Dost, Ramazan Bashir Dost. And he's a member of the Afghan parliament. He was in 2009, the last presidential elections, he came in third, and he didn't cheat. And he's a member of parliament, and this tent is very symbolic. This tent is moved around his district, which is an inner city district of Kabul. and he meets with his constituents, and he drives his own